Okay, now we've learned how to draw basic daffodils. We're going to draw this Pheasant's Eye Daffodil, and you can just copy my picture. You can either just take a screenshot on your computer, laptop or iPad, print it off, copy it, or you can just follow my drawing here. I'm just using a standard HB pencil. You can use a 2B pencil, but nothing harder or softer than that. If it's softer, it'll blend a little bit too easily and might cause marking on the watercolour paper, and if it's harder than that, you won't be able to rub out any mistakes. Okay, and I'm working directly onto an A5 sheet of watercolour paper here. Now, if you're worried about that, you can draw your initial flower on a piece of cartridge paper and trace it through onto your watercolour paper. It's much better if you do that, because then any mistakes you can get rid of on your cartridge paper rather than on your watercolour paper. And as I said before, if you do make mistakes, use a putty rubber to rub out on the watercolour paper. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to mix up some greys for this flower. We need a series of greys because the flower is white. Okay, so what we use in watercolour is we use a mix of ultramarine and alizarin crimson. That's these two colours here. Alizarin crimson is a dark red and ultramarine is your dark blue, but not the inky blues, not the phthalo or the indigos. Make sure you use the ultramarine. And we mix a purple, and this one here is a purple sitting almost exactly in the right tone that I need, which is this one. It's watered down quite a lot and it does dry lighter. This one here is mixed with a little bit more red, alizarin crimson in it, and you can see it's redder. And then this one is mixed with a little bit more blue in it, and you'll see it's a bit bluer than the others. So you need to find the right tone for the grey that you're after. So you need to look at your image, find the tone of purple that you need, and then if you have some Payne's grey, this is Payne's grey, right? That's what it looks like. It's a tone down from black. If you don't have Payne's grey, you can use black. And you take the mix that you want to use and you add a tiny bit of Payne's grey into it. So I'm taking this mix, which is the one that's sitting in the middle of the purple spectrum, and I'm putting it into a separate pot, and then I'm just going to take a really small dot of Payne's grey, and then I end up with something that looks like this, or this, dry. Okay, so it's a purple tinted grey that you're after, and the purple warms the grey up, which is essential for this flower. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that purple that I need, and then I'm going to add a little bit of grey into it, and then I'm going to add lots of water. The way you make colours almost white is by adding water to them, so you see the white of the paper coming through. Okay, so and then we're going to start to apply them. Now the petal here is almost completely grey, so just fill it in as best you can. I'm doing this what they call wet on dry, so I'm applying wet paint to dry paper. And you sort of look at this and you think, oh my God, I don't know if this is going to work. But it's essential that you use these grey tones to offset the white or lighter tones. Okay. So again, look for the darker sections of each petal and paint them with this colour. It might take a little bit of experimentation, but you will get there with your colour mixing. And remember that these mixes dry lighter than when you put them on initially as they dry out. So you can see there's a section in there. And so on. And I'm now going to put this onto time lapse and finish the rest of the picture. Okay, now we've got a little bit of grey on this Narcissus poeticus. We're going to do the stem while this dries off a little bit. All I've done is I've started with the initial grey colour, and then I've just put extra layers on top of one another. So I put a layer down, I dried it off with a hairdryer, I put another layer down, I dried it off with a hairdryer, and I just built up those tones that you can see on those leaves. And if you squint at the image, you can see the tones. You'll be able to see where the lightest part of the petal is and where the darkest part. So if you start with those bits first, and then you can add the details on as you go along. But while we're waiting for this to dry, we're going to put the stem in, and I've mixed a sap green here with a little bit of lemon yellow, just to make it a little bit acidic in colour. So rather than using the cadmium yellow, which is the primary yellow in watercolour, using the acidic lemon yellow, and it will give you that freshness you need for a spring green. Okay, the green will help balance the picture and also give you some idea of the tonal values. It will help see the grey areas on the white petals as white. Okay, so we've got our little bit of green there. I'm just going to quickly dry that so it doesn't run with a hairdryer. And then I'm going to use a little bit of burnt sienna, or burnt sienna would be, you want a reddy brown colour, mixed with a little bit of yellow ochre. So these are the colours here. This is a reddy brown and the yellow ochre. Okay, again, if you haven't got those, just use the colours that are closest to them. A brown and a yellow would be fine. And we're going to use that colour for the casing. This is the casing that was around the bud of the daffodil initially, before it came out, protecting it. So it's quite brown, but it will dry lighter, and we're going to add some extra layers of this colour to it once it's dried. Okay, there we go. Now by that time this should be dry, so what we can do is put the centre of the flower in, and the centre of the flower in this instance is very acidic. Some daffodils are acidic in colour and others are warmer. So look at your daffodil, and we can actually colour the whole of this in the yellow. Again, I've put quite a bit of water in this yellow, but I'm going to cover most of the central trumpet in that colour, and we need to let that dry. However, before you dry it off with a hairdryer, just take a stronger solution of that lemon and put it in around the centre. If you can sort of paint around those stigma and stamen that are in the centre, that would be great. Just a little suggestion in there like that. And it even goes a bit green in the middle, so we could take a little touch of green and just add that in. Okay, and the next thing to do is to put some orange on. Now, you can choose to be brave in this instance or not. It's up to you. Either dry off the yellow, or you can try and put it in so that it bleeds a little into the yellow. So you can put it around the edge like this, and you can see this will really pop now because of the orange application. And luckily I have an orange watercolour. If you don't have an orange watercolour, then mix cadmium yellow with cadmium red, and you'll get a nice bright orange. Now don't worry if it bleeds into the trumpet a little bit, that'll only add to its beauty. So you can see the edges are feathered, so don't just sort of draw a circle around that central part. We want it to be feathered. And also you can take a stronger solution of orange, or if you have got an orange red, I have an orange red in my set, you can take that orange red and use it. Otherwise, take your orange and add a bit of red into it, and you can see that the very edge of the trumpet has got a redness to it. So just dot it around the edge a little like this, and you'll just get an extra layer of 3D to your trumpet if you do this. Okay, so just around the edges, try not to cover up your orange completely, and maybe just leave gaps in places because we don't want it to dominate too much. Just around the edge like that. Okay, and then let it dry. So now all I'm going to do is add extra tones, and I'm just going to do that by adding another layer of colour, the same colour as I used previously, on top of the dried paint, and that will create shadows and also texture to your finished painting. So look carefully at the various areas and decide whether they need extra layers of tone. And you can always add in a little bit of the straight green out of your palette. So, you know, you could use a bit of olive or sap green or something like that, just to get those tones a little darker. So I'm going to I'm going to put this on time lapse so you can watch me do this. So I will just be adding extra layers of green here and here, extra layers of the burnt sienna mixed with yellow ochre here, and I may go in and put some extra darker sections just in the center of these petals, near the center, near the middle of the flower. And then I'm going to add splashes of yellow in here, and I'm just going to put a little bit, probably of this mix, where the stamen are. Okay, so just build up your colours slowly. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there, mainly because I don't want to overwork it, which is a popular term in watercolour, overworking. Keep adding layers, but try and keep your colours pure. That means don't mix too many together. Just work with two colours together if you can, so blue and red, or you know, blue red with a tiny bit of black in it and things like that. Don't mix millions of colours, they end up getting really muddy. Okay,